This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by
freeking.com.
New Hampshire Liberty News in podcast form for this September 25th, 2020. According to freeking.com, quote, Keene churches, businesses file lawsuit against NH and Keene mask mandates. Aria DeMezzo and Faux Keene Great suing NH governor and city of Keene over mask mandates, unquote. The article goes on to say, quote, attorney Robert Fojo, who sued Nashua earlier this year over their mandatory mask ordinance, is heading up the suit. In the detailed complaint, Fojo argues that the city of Keene's mask mandate is illegal, as New Hampshire is not a home rule state. I was wondering, unquote, I was wondering when someone was going to say that. So basically what that means, home rule state, is that cities and towns are only allowed to do those things which are authorized by state law. So going on, quote, in multiple counts, the suit points out that mask restrictions violate the right to assemble, due process, freedom of religion, and the freedom of speech via facial expressions, and literally having one's air passages restricted. Fojo cites some strongly written Texas court decisions from this year, including Abbott 20-0291, where the Texas Supreme Court unanimously agreed that the Constitution is not suspended when the government declares a state of disaster. And Salon a la Mode et al. 20-0340, where the same court wrote, all government power in this country, no matter how well-intentioned, derives only from state and federal constitutions. Government power cannot be exercised in conflict with these constitutions, even in a pandemic. If we tolerate unconstitutional government orders during an emergency, whether out of expediency or fear, we abandon the Constitution at the moment we need it most. Well, it's interesting. I don't know of any judges that thought this way before the pandemic. Maybe the pandemic was necessary to make some judges actually pro-Constitution for once. Anyway, this was Ian Freeman writing in freeking.com, and apparently he is one of the co-plaintiffs. He's the founder and host of the local radio talk show, Free Talk Live, which is actually national as well. And there's other news related to Freeman his show. Apparently, this sort of YouTube phenomenon of banning and deplatforming, shadow banning, practically anyone they can get their hands on, has spread to Discord. Discord has now deplatformed Free Talk Live. And Freeman reported this on his show. He said that they sent a note indicating that there was some sort of cyberbullying or targeting of an individual or group. But it was just a generic letter. It was like they send that out to all kinds of different people. And they wouldn't tell him what the offending act or message was. Just like a general sort of thing that someone had done some sort of thing related to cyberbullying. Which, what is that, by the way? Is it like saying something on the internet that someone doesn't want you to? Is that cyberbullying? Because that's the best I can tell. Is that's what they think That's what they think that's cyberbullying out there in the snowflake world. An additional hit on Free Talk Live was scored by the bad guys when they closed down one of the co-hosts' bank accounts. And this is the Aria DeMezzo person that I mentioned earlier above, one of the plaintiffs in the mask lawsuit, who's also running for sheriff and got a whole bunch of attention for being the anarchist, anarchist trans Satanist who won the Republican nomination for sheriff. This got all kinds of attention. It was on Fox News, or at least on their website. And as I reported in the last podcast, she was immediately retaliated against in other ways by having her tires slashed and her roof of her car cut open. We're getting closer, folks. I think there was something else that happened to Free Talk Live or something like that, but I may get to that later if I can find it. Other news that's popping up on my list here, reopennh.com has made 3 announcements of interest. Quote, one of the Reopen NH's leading activists, Rochelle Kelly, a school board member in Ware and Reopen NH board member, was arrested for bringing her children to a playground 5 months after the fact. She needs help fighting in court and then suing in an effort that will protect all of our rights. Please follow this link to learn more, yada yada, unquote. Continuing, quote, on Saturday, October 24th, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the State House, Reopen NH is participating in a Shining Light, a grassroots vigil for victims of the recent government overreach. We're holding this LED candlelight vigil to recognize the hidden casualties of government shutdown, which has been based on bad politicized science. The event is also structured to precede the election and energize voters to support candidates who will remove the barriers of government and restore the liberty in our state needed to get everyone's lives back on track. Unquote. So I have interviewed one or more Concord PD officers regarding this practice of messing with people at playgrounds, and they made it sound like, oh no, it's we just want to keep them safe and give them some information, and this, they made it sound like they were not fascists, but apparently they are. Some positive news out of neighboring Maine from the Bangor Daily News. Quote, Augusta, Maine. Ranked choice voting will be used in the presidential election in Maine this fall after the state's high court ruled that Republicans did not gather enough valid signatures to put forward a people's veto effort challenging the voting method. The decision coming after months of legal challenges and an initial ruling from the Maine Supreme Judicial Court earlier this month that allowed the state to begin printing ballots, is a victory for Secretary of State Matt Dunlop, a Democrat whose office twice determined that opponents of ranked choice voting failed to get enough signatures. Unquote. So ranked choice voting, I should explain, this is I don't know how, there are different kinds of it, so I don't know exactly how it would work in this case. But basically it's a more democratic, less winner-take-all version of voting. Most liberty folks tend to favor it, as there's more you can do to punish a politician you hate than just not put them at the very top, right? You can rank it. So I guess, with there'd probably be 4 candidates on the presidential ballot. There'd be the Green candidate, the Libertarian candidate. And so most Democrats will probably go in there and they'll probably vote for the Democrat candidate, and then they'll vote for the Libertarian and Green candidates, not in that order. They'd vote for the Green candidate, the Libertarian third, and then Donald Trump last, right? That's probably what most liberals would do. So you can hit Donald Trump 3 times by putting him in the bottom instead of just not putting him at the top. Now, in the presidential elections, I'm not sure how much difference it would make, but if this was just a widespread practice around the country that you had approval voting, I think you would just have less fascism in the United States and less communism in power. Having said that, though, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day who was complaining about AOC, I forget her whole name, Cortez, that lady who's in the Congress. And, of course, you hear leftists losing their minds over fascists, as I sometimes lose my mind over fascists. Well, the fact is, in an actual democracy, you will have fascists represented in your legislatures, and communists. They'll be part of society, right? That's what a democracy looks like. So to me, it's actually somewhat of a healthy sign in some ways, that someone like her would be able to get into Congress, or that the alleged Islamofascist, I think she's from Somalia, who got elected to Congress, or maybe I'm thinking about somebody else. Anyway, an alleged Islamofascist is running around in Congress doing alleged Islamofascist stuff, and that, too, is a sign of democracy actually starting to function again in the United States. I don't know if that's really what's happening, but that's what it would look like, in part, if democracy was working. Of course, if it was really working, you'd also see the liberty viewpoint, represented. Although I guess technically it is, now and then you get the liberty viewpoint represented in Congress. Justin Amash does seem to kind of represent that. as Ron Paul did for a while. And in some ways, it looks even better in the New Hampshire State House, where you have people who are really far left nut jobs that are out there representing the public, out representing the far left nut job community, and you have a large, I think pretty large number of state reps who are secessionists, in the State House in New Hampshire. It's not something that gets a lot of play, but the number is non-trivial. And, you have that taxation is theft meme that has gone through the State House, a very liberty thing. Another sign of democracy and free speech in New Hampshire is radio talk show Keith Hansen, who just posted this on my group, NH General Discussion, my Facebook group. He says, quote, "The ridiculous demands of Clifton West Jr. and the rest of the Seacoast NH BLM trash," unquote. Actually, that's the only part of his quote that I copied. So he's calling some people trash because they're part of Black Lives Matter? Is that appropriate? That's appropriate for him to be able to have a talk show, but that's not what I would have said. Of course, on NH General Discussion, we practice free speech there too. So his quote, which I don't like, is still sitting there. I have not interfered with it. You can talk trash on NH General Discussion. That's what it's there for. If you want, we have a practice, which I would modify this probably if I started a new Facebook group. I would do something different. But the practice, not the rule, but the practice based on precedent is that if you can get 2/3 of the people voting in a poll on NH General Discussion to vote in favor of removing someone from NH General Discussion, then you can shut them up on NH General Discussion. You got to get a 2/3 majority to eject someone from NH General Discussion, and we've only managed to successfully do that once. I think we had, and I had to call the vote myself on this. We had a credible claim of one of the people posting on our board being a convicted child molester. I think that's as far as we've ever gotten. I think all the other attempts, usually brought up by somebody else, to eject somebody have failed. But and if I had to do it over again, I'd probably make it majority rules, because it's just, we can't really even get spammers ejected. And there's no hope of ejecting someone who never posts anything on topic. Those people we're stuck with. But it seems to have worked out okay anyway, just because I think it does have sort of a deterrent effect. Even just even just subjecting someone to a poll does seem to quiet them down a little bit if they're spamming or something. Now, going deeper into this case that you may have thought merited more attention, and I do. This case of the woman being arrested for bringing her kids to a playground in Concord. This is also, I can't tell what the source is on this, but it says whatever. I think it's gogetfunding.com or something like that. The post, maybe it's an attempt to raise money or something. But anyway, it says, quote, "Should a woman with young children go to jail and or be fined because she brought her children to play on a playground one sunny day in the United States of America?" The Concord NH City prosecutor believes that she should because of COVID-19, and we're asking for your help as she fights in court for our freedom to live free. Think about this for a moment. If the prosecution wins, a working dad will need to figure out how to raise his homeschooled children while his dutiful wife is behind bars. He will live a life without his beloved for up to 2 years. The children will be deprived of their mother and teacher, her loving hugs, her bedtime, yada yada. Continuing, quote, "Let's discuss her alleged crime. Rochelle Kelly took her 5 young children to Rollins Park in Concord, NH on April 23rd, 2020, during the COVID-19 lockdown. The governor did not prohibit access to public parks because, as we all know, fresh air and sunshine are natural antiseptics and help people mentally cope with difficulties in their lives, and children need to play outside for their own well-being. The city of Concord, however, had roped off the playground with caution tape. Taking this as a warning rather than a restriction, Rochelle allowed her children to play on the playground. She wasn't the only one. Several other mothers and 2 fathers had brought their children to play there that day as well. Who wouldn't? It was a beautiful sunny day. The day's beauty faded into the gray overtone of a dystopian fiction when 2 police officers and later 4 more came to order the children to get off the playground. Rochelle immediately complied. This is an incredibly important point. After complying, she engaged in cordial conversation with the officers, asking them what authority they were claiming to order her children to get off the playground. She asked them specifically whether their police training included knowledge of the Constitution and the rights we enjoy as Americans. She asked them on what grounds they were ordering her children to lay off the playground. She was respectful. She had already obeyed the order. She was just trying to understand what seemed, and should seem to you, to be an unlawful order. Unfortunately, the story at this point becomes muddled by other mothers who also engaged with the police. Some of them did not comply. Some of them were rude. Some of them were belligerent. This was wrong. Importantly, Rochelle did not participate in this behavior, and there is video evidence that proves this. In fact, a few days later, she called the police department to apologize for the treatment they received from the other mothers, and she brought them dinner as a gesture of goodwill. She thought that was the end of it. Fast forward 2 months. A warrant for Rochelle's arrest was issued by the city of Concord. They didn't tell anybody about it. No mail, no call, no email, nothing. Fast forward 3 more months. One of the other parents involved in April was stopped on the street in another community and advised that there was a warrant out for his arrest. He told his story to the other parents that he knew, including Rochelle. Rochelle called the city of Concord to inquire whether she also had a warrant against her, and was told that she did. She then turned herself in. The first thing the following morning, was booked and thrown behind bars. She was then released on bail. Rochelle is being charged with a Class A misdemeanor for criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct, and is facing trial starting with a hearing on October 19th, 2020. You be the judge if you believe, like I do, that these charges are not only unfounded, but also, again, quoting, also counter to the rule of law and everything that is good and true about our country, unquote. So that was apparently on a fundraising site, gogetfunding.com, probably. Another reopen-related news, Jason Gerhard, a New Hampshire Liberty migrant, I don't know if he's a Free Stater or not, but he moved to New Hampshire for more freedom. After serving almost, about over 10 years in jail related to his involvement in the Ed Brown standoff at Plainfield, he has posted a poll on Reopen NH where he's listing a different, what are the different kinds, he says, quote, what kinds of protests should we do in the near future, within a month or so, unquote. He lists several options, but one of them is a candlelight vigil. He refers to it as being at Governor Sununu's house. I think what he meant by that, and what I mean when I say that kind of thing, is on the right-of-way outside Governor Sununu's house, or near Governor Sununu's house. But anyway, this has created a little bit of a controversy on Reopen NH, because Andrew Manous, who I think runs the Facebook group there, or is kind of the top guy at Reopen NH, to my knowledge, he has asked Gerhard to remove that option of the candlelight vigil at or near Chris Sununu's house. And I guess one of the things that Manous was pointing out, which is probably worth listening to, is the fact that he's like, well, there's children, maybe there's children there, or there's family there, those people aren't guilty of anything. On the other hand, Gerhard is he's talking about a candlelight vigil. He probably means to have it on a public street, some area where it's not illegal to be. So we'll see what happens there. Keene State College is back into fascism. This was posted on the City of Keene's website. Quote, Keene State College is taking important steps to keep their campus and the Keene community safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. If you have concerns about specific student behavior you've observed off campus that may affect the health, safety, or welfare of the Keene community, and you'd like to report it, please use the KSC form available via the web. So I went to the forum, and it says, quote, "This form should be used by any person to report concerns about behavior off campus which may affect the health, safety, or welfare of the Keene community. Thank you for taking this time to submit your concern regarding off-campus student behavior. Keene State College takes your report seriously, and your report will be reviewed by the Incident Coordination Team. If you would like to follow up on your concern, please contact the Dean of Students office at 6035 yada yada yada." Unquote. Okay, so that's what I think I need to do. I need to head to the Dean of Students office and report my concerns about them acting like the Stasi with a surveillance regimen. In addition to many other concerns regarding past behavior of Keene State College. I mean, I've had difficulty tracking all the terrible things they've done to everyone else, but you've seen that video from early 2018 where they eject me for trying to film a government meeting, a public government meeting, with the City of Keene City Council members. And they called the cops on me, who did eject me. Look, I mean, I can appreciate the fact that the... actually, let me finish listing some of the grievances first. The other concerns I have about the college's behavior are that, of course, they've banned students. Like, if these students get reported and then brought up before a disciplinary council of some kind, I can't remember what the thing is called, the disciplinary process that I'm aware of, they're not allowed to film it. So it's like they get brought into a kangaroo court and they can't bring a camera with them. And they can't bring a friend. I think in most cases, the media is not allowed to attend. It's all secret. They videotape it themselves, then destroy the evidence of what is probably a lot of Karen and snowflake and authoritarian behavior on the part of the college. I mean, they're covering it up, right? It can only be so good. They've also banned students from eating while standing outside. So, you know, I can appreciate the fact that they do want to protect the community from their students, but how about just not having the college in the first place? If there were no college there, there would be no students being indoctrinated there. No taxpayer money would be wasted on that bleeding sore. And they wouldn't have to, be handing the public the crutch after breaking its leg, right? I mean, the fact that they put that college there is one of the reasons why we had a riot in 2015 or whenever it was, and which you paid for. You underwrote the riot by bringing all the students there with tax dollars. You concentrate a bunch of 20-year-olds in a specific location, you're going to have an increase in the crime rate. So if something like that's going to happen, people should be able to pay for it themselves. They should be able to put the 20-year-olds there with their own money if they wish to, but not with your money. It's like the government is in a college. They're arm wrestling against themselves here. I wanted to provide a different viewpoint regarding the arrest of the playground mom from the authoritarian news center known as WMUR. They posted something on their website. They're the primary TV station in New Hampshire, primary government mouthpiece, it sometimes feels like. Quote, "Concord police have arrested 3 people in connection with an incident at a playground that was shut down because of COVID-19 this spring. Investigators said the people wouldn't leave the area initially after being told it was closed. 3 people have now been arrested 5 months after the incident. The playground at Rollins Park in Concord was closed as part of a plan to stop the spread of COVID-19. Quote, subquote, "Unfortunately, there were a select few people who decided not to adhere to the city's shutdown of the playgrounds, subquote," said Deputy Police Chief John Thomas. 2 officers said they confronted Pamela Jewell, Tyler Workman, and Rochelle Kelly on April 23rd at Rollins Park because they allegedly were not adhering to the rules. Kelly is a school board member in Ware. Subquote, "When we heard that, it was disappointing." Unsubquote, Thomas said. Subquote, "This is a person that is supposed to be out there looking out for the children, and we don't feel it was a good example to set for the children." Unsubquote. Thomas goes on to say, quote, "No respect to the officers. It was very sad to see how these folks carried themselves in front of the children and how they treated the officers that day." Unquote. "You are allowed to be disrespectful in an F-bombing free state," supposedly. Now, later on in the WMER article, it looks like they tried to contact the mothers in question, to their credit, and they said that all the ones they were able to reach declined to comment, including this Ware school board member, Rochelle Kelly. Although Rochelle, I guess, so she sent a message to WMUR. She sent a written message, and WMUR did quote that. And the message is similar to what I was telling you from the GoFundMe campaign, as she was saying, well, I left when they told me to. But generally, if you can, you do want to, even with an authoritarian press like WMUR, you want to go ahead and engage with them as fully as you can without endangering yourself, to make sure that you're giving them two sides of the story. No comment doesn't work. So one option, instead of telling them what you did and didn't do, that's just hearsay, and in court it doesn't hold up. You can at least talk in general terms about what's right and wrong, and what's wrong, especially about what the government's doing. But this is outrageous stuff on behalf of the CPD, and I really wouldn't have expected it. I figured this was over 5 months ago when it was filmed. I saw the video, I think, unless it's a different incident. And this is probably the test case the other police departments will look at to see how much they can get away with. They found out that they could get away with ordering people to do all kinds of crazy things in this alleged pandemic, which may be more like an epidemic. They discovered, we can kind of get away with this. There's some pushback, but it's not really enough to be super concerned about. Maybe let's just start throwing people in jail and see what happens. Because you know what? The fact that the fact that the whole country hates us isn't enough. The fact that there's a whole move to defund us isn't enough. We have to make the rest of the country. We have to make the rest of the country hate us for new and different reasons. We have to add soccer moms to the ethnic tensions we've already created, and we have to make Ridley even angrier than he already was. I tell you what, I don't know whatever is going to make these people stop. It's like they have just nothing but hubris. Ridley out.
What are you arresting this man for?
You've seen the dramatic Liberty arrests in Keene, New Hampshire. Now see 111 reasons why you should move there and reinforce these gutsy activists. Keene's advantages are compelling, and the list of reasons to move has just been updated. For details, visit freekeene.com.